Welcome to Inside Insights, your quick hit of tips, tools, and trends for manufacturing, distribution, and Dynamics 365 Business Central, brought to you by InsightWorks.
So, imagine losing a $50,000 client because a warehouse worker accidentally pasted a tracking number, just one row too low in an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah. A total nightmare.
Right. It sounds completely absurd. But right now, the seamless world of modern e-commerce is essentially being held together by people frantically copy-pasting tracking numbers between disconnected browser tabs.
It's kind of terrifying when you actually look at it.
It really is. You see a beautifully branded checkout page, and you assume the back office runs flawlessly. But peel back the curtain, and you find high-volume businesses relying on workflows that look less like a digital supply chain and more like a high-stakes game of telephone.
Yeah, and that mundane, invisible gap between systems, that is exactly where profit margins quietly bleed out.
Literally bleed out.
Because in the era of cloud computing, there is this assumption that all of a company's systems naturally communicate. But the reality outlined in our sources today is that these systems often operate in total isolation. I mean, your sales platform doesn't talk to your warehouse floor, and your warehouse floor certainly doesn't talk to the freight carriers backing up to the dock.
Which perfectly sets up our mission for this deep dive. We are exploring the hidden costs of fragmented business software and looking at how a single, intelligently designed integration can solve a massive operational headache.
A huge headache.
Yeah. And we are pulling insights from a deep breakdown of supply chain software, specifically focusing on Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central and a highly specialized application called Dynamic Ship by InsightWorks.
Right.
So whether you're managing a warehouse, leading an IT migration, or you just want a masterclass in how to engineer friction out of a daily workflow, this applies to you. Okay, let's unpack this, because the core problem presented in our source material is something anyone who has ever managed a team will just, feel in their bones.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's look at the daily reality of a standard shipping routine.
Yeah, so if you are running Business Central, you have a really robust ERP handling your financial, your inventory, your sales, but when it's time to actually put a physical box on a truck, that process suddenly falls off a digital cliff.
Right, it just stops.
It just stops. The worker pulls up the order in Business Central, realizes they need a shipping rate, and, the manual later begins. They minimize the ERP, open a completely separate web browser, log into a specific carrier's portal, and manually key in the destination, the weight, the dimensions, just to get a rate.
And then they have to switch screens again to actually book the shipment.
Yep.
After that, they print the shipping label from yet another standalone physical station, usually like in the corner of the warehouse somewhere. And the loop still isn't closed.
Not at all.
They now have a finalized freight cost and a tracking number sitting in a carrier's web portal. But the ERP, the main nervous system of the business, is completely blind to it. So the worker highlights the tracking number, copies it, toggles back over to Business Central, finds the original order, and manually pastes it in.
And they're doing this hundreds of times a day across multiple different carriers. It is what the industry famously calls the swivel chair problem.
The swivel chair problem. I love that term.
Right, because you are physically or digitally swiveling between disconnected interfaces to complete a single basic task. But a crucial detail from the source text stand out here. This is not fundamentally a Business Central problem.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Business Central is doing its job. It's a walled garden by design. The friction is happening because shipping requires you to briefly leave that walled garden and interact with the chaotic outside world of third-party logistics.
I mean, it's like trying to book a complex international vacation, but you have to use a separate app for your flights, another for your hotels, and a third for your rental cars.
Oh, that sounds awful.
And absolutely none of them sync with your personal calendar. You are acting as the manual API, constantly copying and pasting reservation numbers from 3 different screens into your own schedule, just so you know what city you're supposed to be in.
That is a perfect analogy. And, what's fascinating here is how this isolation disguises its true cost. The text emphasizes that when you are shipping outside your ERP, the damage doesn't usually look like a sudden catastrophic failure.
Yeah, it's more subtle.
Exactly. It manifests as a dozen small, insidious problems that just compound daily.
Yeah, because if you manage a team, you already know the sinking feeling of discovering a missing digit in a freight. Someone keys in a typo on a dimensional weight, you end up undercharging a massive client for shipping, and you just ate your entire profit margin for that sale.
Gone.
Just like that.
Or worse, the tracking number never makes it back to the sales order at all.
Which triggers the most expensive chain reaction in retail, the "where is my order" phone call.
Oh, the dreaded phone call. Right. So the customer calls your service rep.
Right.
The rep pulls up the customer record in Business Central. But because the warehouse worker forgot to paste the tracking data, the field is blank.
So they have nothing to tell them.
Nothing. That service rep now has to put an angry customer on hold, open up 3 different carrier portals, search for the client's name, locate the package, and read the number back over the phone. That isn't just an annoyance. That is a massive recurring labor cost disguised as standard customer service.
It's just bleeding time. And you simply cannot scale a manual copy-paste workflow. If your order volume surges from 50 boxes a day to 5,000, that dozen small problems suddenly breaks the back of your workforce.
Which brings us to the mechanics of dynamic ship. But wait, aren't we just adding another complicated piece of software to the pile? How does adding an app solve the problem of having too many apps?
I am so glad you asked that, because the source text hits that philosophy head on. There is a defining principle behind this architecture, and it's this: the goal isn't another tool bolted onto your ERP. It's fewer tools, period.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Yeah, Dynamic Ship is not an external portal. It is native to Business Central. It effectively consumes those outside portals and pulls their functionality directly into the screens your team is already using. It keeps the entire workflow inside the box.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of how it actually does that, because the text highlights 4 specific functional fixes, right? Starting with rate shopping. Instead of opening a web browser for FedEx, another for UPS, and a third for an LTL provider, the system handles the querying in the background.
Right, because the destination and customer data already exist in the ERP sales order. Dynamic Ship uses API layers to instantly ping your contracted carriers in real time, pulling back the rates and presenting them in one unified list directly inside Business Central.
Oh, wow. So the worker just clicks the cheapest or fastest option. No swiveling.
Zero swiveling.
Then you have the second fix, which tackles label printing. Usually, a warehouse worker has to walk across the concrete floor to a dedicated shipping station to print a label, and then, match that physical sticker to the correct physical box.
Which is another massive opportunity for human error.
Exactly. But Dynamic Ship ties the label generation directly to the shipment record inside the ERP.
It becomes a highly contextual action. But the third feature, package management, is where the engineering gets really impressive. The source notes that Dynamic Ship allows the ERP to reflect the physical reality of what is actually happening on the warehouse floor.
Yeah, and this is a major disconnect for a lot of systems, right? A sales rep might sell an item as 1 pallet, but the warehouse actually has to pack it as 48 individual cartons to securely load it onto a truck.
Precisely. And how does the software translate that physical reality? It utilizes the ERP's hierarchical unit of measure databases.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So when the warehouse worker scans the barcode for that pallet, Dynamic Ship queries that database, instantly breaking down the volumetric weight and dimensions of those 48 individual boxes. It automatically generates the accurate freight classes and shipment parameters without a human having to sit there with a calculator trying to figure out dimensional density.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, the software learns to speak the physical language of the warehouse floor.
Which leads right into the final fix, tracking. The tracking number is automatically updated in the Business Central shipment record the exact millisecond the label is generated at the printer.
The loop closes itself.
So what does this all mean? It means when that customer calls asking where their order is, the digital scavenger hunt is entirely eliminated. The service rep pulls up the account in the ERP they are already logged into, and the live tracking link is sitting right there on the main screen.
It's instantaneous.
You are instantly reclaiming all that lost labor time, and you've systematically engineered the human copy-paste error out of existence.
Exactly. You preserve the integrity of your data by refusing to let it travel between systems via human hands.
Now, understanding how the app keeps everything inside Business Central is one thing, but we have to look at who it actually connects to. Building a clean API for one parcel carrier is relatively straightforward. But building a unified ecosystem is infinitely harder. The source points out that Dynamic Ship maintains direct connectors to 25 different shipping and freight partners.
And that roster spans a massive logistical spectrum. It covers standard parcel delivery all the way up to complex LTL freight and specialized regional carriers.
But, if you are a business trying to simplify your logistics, why not just pick one massive shipping company, negotiate an aggressive volume rate, and use them for absolutely everything. Why do you need 25 connectors?
Because the physics of real-world manufacturing and distribution simply will not allow it. A single carrier strategy shatters the moment you look at the physical diversity of what these companies are moving. Take a manufacturer of automotive parts. On a Tuesday morning, a local mechanic places a frantic order for a specific titanium spark plug. It weighs 4 ounces. You drop it in a padded envelope, select a standard parcel carrier, and overnight it.
Very straightforward.
But that same afternoon, a major national auto parts retailer submits an order for 500 cast iron brake rotors.
You cannot throw those in cardboard boxes.
No. You are shrink-wrapping thousands of pounds of steel onto wooden pallets, and you are calling an LTL freight provider with a flatbed and a forklift to come load them off your dock.
So you're dealing with completely different modes of transport.
Exactly. You are utilizing wildly different shipping methods on the exact same day, often for the exact same client depending on their inventory needs.
And this is where that universal translator metaphor really clicks into place. Having 25 connectors built directly into the ERP isn't just about giving the procurement team a menu of choices, it's about workflow consistency for the people on the floor.
Right. It completely insulates the warehouse team from the chaos of corporate logistics. If the procurement director decides next month to fire their primary LTL provider and negotiate a new contract with a regional carrier, they don't have to retrain the entire warehouse staff on a new portal.
Oh, that's a huge relief for a warehouse manager.
Huge. The physical buttons the workers click inside Business Central stay exactly the same. The interface is identical. The software handles the translation between that standard workflow and the specific API data requirements of the new carrier. The only thing that changes for the worker is the logo on the side of the truck backing up to the loading dock.
That workflow consistency doesn't just matter for day-to-day operations either. It becomes a massive lifeline when the underlying software itself has to change, which transitions perfectly into a highly specific, timely crisis highlighted in our source material. There is a massive wave of panic happening in the industry right now because Microsoft is winding down support for an older on-premise system called Dynamics GP.
Yeah, and the migration from Dynamics GP to Business Central is a brutal inflection point for a lot of mid-market companies. You are essentially ripping out the digital nervous system of your business and replacing it while the patient is still awake and trying to fulfill daily orders.
And it isn't just a simple software update.
Not at all. Dynamics GP is often run on-premise, relying on older SQL databases and custom scripts that a company might have written, a decade ago to connect to their local shipping servers.
Right. Highly customized, very fragile.
Very fragile. Business Central is a modern multi-tenant cloud architecture that relies on web APIs. When you migrate, all those custom legacy scripts instantly break. The infrastructure fundamentally changes.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the source introduces a new addition to the dynamic ship ecosystem that is specifically engineered to de-risk this exact migration panic. They've integrated a connector for an entity called Priority One.
Yes. Priority One is a massive logistical aggregator. It is a network of over 47,000 vetted carriers, spanning both parcel and complex LTL freight.
But wait, accessing 47,000 carriers through a single API connection, that sounds like a technological nightmare. How does a single screen even process that without timing out?
Well, it requires an incredibly sophisticated API layering system. When Dynamic Ship queries Priority One, it isn't waiting for 47,000 individual servers to respond.
Okay.
Priority One utilizes powerful rate shopping engines that instantly ping regional databases, aggregating localized capacity and negotiated rates in milliseconds, and piping that unified data back into the Business Central interface.
Wow. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, why is Priority One being so heavily emphasized for companies fleeing Dynamics GP?
It comes down to the human element of enterprise software. Priority One has a massive, entrenched presence among businesses running Dynamics GP. If you were the CEO of a distribution company, you might have spent the last 10 years optimizing your daily warehouse routines, your dock schedules, and your shipping budgets entirely around your relationship with Priority One.
And now Microsoft is telling you that you have to abandon GP and move to the cloud. If that migration means your legacy API connections break, and you suddenly lose access to the carrier now like you've spent a decade optimizing, that is a total deal breaker.
Exactly.
You aren't just learning a new software interface, you are actively severing your physical supply chain.
Which is the exact roadblock InsightWorks is dismantling with this integration. By building the Priority One connector into Dynamic Ship, They are offering a bridge to these companies. They are telling IT directors, you can migrate your financial and inventory architecture to the cloud with Business Central, and you can bring your legacy freight relationships with you.
That's huge.
It is. The underlying data structure changes, but the physical reality of how your freight moves off the dock remains completely intact.
It dramatically lowers the temperature on a migration that usually keeps executives up at night. You don't have to rebuild your logistics network from scratch while simultaneously trying to teach your accounting department how to use a new ERP.
And this raises an important question for you listening right now. Regardless of what industry you are in or what software stack you manage, audit your own daily operations. Look closely at your team. How much of your core business process currently requires an employee to leave your primary system, log into a third-party portal, and manually copy data back and forth? And more importantly, what is that invisible gap costing you in hidden labor and silent errors?
Because the overarching thesis of this deep dive, the lesson that goes far beyond warehouse management, is that you cannot rely on human beings to act as manual APIs.
No, you can't.
It is too slow, it doesn't scale, and it is endlessly prone to error. Whether you are leading a massive cloud migration or you're just looking at your own departmental workflow wondering why a simple task feels so incredibly tedious, the rule remains the same. You have to keep the work where the data lives. When you close the gaps between your software, you instantly scale the capacity of your team.
And if we look at the trajectory of where this technology is heading, the implications of unifying that data are profound. We've spent this time dissecting how pulling 47,000 carriers into one unified screen saves human labor and eliminates copy-paste errors today. But looking ahead, if all your shipping parameters, your volumetric weights, and your rate shotting logic are perfectly centralized and clean within one ERP, what happens when you introduce predictive AI into that environment?
Oh, wow. It takes the human completely out of the decision loop.
Exactly. Imagine a logistics system that doesn't just present a list of rates for a worker to click. Imagine an AI that analyzes an incoming order, calculates the dimensional weight, and automatically switches your chosen freight carrier mid-route without human intervention.
That's incredible.
Right. Reacting instantly to real-time weather patterns, unexpected port bottlenecks, or minute-by-minute fluctuations in diesel surcharges. It dynamically routes your physical goods the way a server routes internet traffic. When your workflow is finally unified and your data is pristine, true autonomous logistics isn't just a possibility, it's inevitable.
And the integrations we are mapping out today are laying the concrete for that exact future. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take a hard look at your own workflows this week. Find those swivel chair gaps, and we will catch you on the next one.